In this video, we're going to be taking a look at comparing and ordering fractions and mixed numbers. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that superhero crisscross again. Hopefully it will help save the day. Now, a couple things we're going to take a look at is how to do a few different things. Now, if we're going to look at comparing mixed numbers, now remember a mixed number always has a whole number and a fraction. Okay, so if we're ever taking a look at comparing mixed numbers, all right, the first thing we always want to do is look at the whole number. So 4 and 3, pretty obvious here. If I have 4 of something, or if I have 3 of something, it's pretty obvious that 4 is greater than 3. So that means no matter what the fraction is, the mixed number with the greater whole number will always be greater. Okay, now if the whole numbers are equal, what we would do then is just compare the fractions. So you can see I have 1 and 1/6, 1 and 4/15. Okay, so I can see that my whole numbers are equal. Now since the whole numbers are equal, what we have to do is just, we can even do that superhero crisscross. 1 times 15 will give me 15. We can cross multiply. 6 times 4 gives me 24. So the fraction with the greater number on top will be the greater fraction. Okay, so I could see that 1 and 1/6 is less than 1 and 4/15. Now, it's also really important that you just have basic understanding of fractions, some of those benchmark fractions, and think of 1/3, 1/4. Okay, actually 1/4, 1/3. Okay, 1/2, 2/3, 3/4. Those are very, very important to know and understand. Okay, because if I know and understand those benchmark fractions, I can easily see that a fraction, when I'm comparing multiple fractions, when I can't necessarily always just do a superhero crisscross, that's going to help me out. Okay, in trying to figure out which fraction is greater. Okay, so I have 2/3, 1/5, 1/4, and 3/10. Now right away, I know, since I have good fraction sense, that 2/3 is greater than any other fraction here. Okay, it's greater than 1/5, 1/4, and 3/10. Okay, so right away I'm going to put that all the way where it says greatest. I can kind of cross this one out. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to figure out how to compare these final 3 fractions together. Okay, and really the best way to do this is try to find a common denominator if you are taking a look at 3 different fractions. So I know right away that 5, 4, and 10 can all go into the number 20. Okay, so what I'm going to do is write 20 underneath each fraction. So that's going to be my denominator. Okay, now what I need to figure out is, what did I do to my 5 to get to 20? And I multiply that by 4. So that means I'm going to multiply my numerator by 4. What did I do to my 4 to get to 20? I multiplied that by 5, so I'll multiply my numerator by 5, giving me 5/20. And then I multiplied my denominator by 2, which gave me 20. So I'm going to multiply my numerator by 2, giving me 6. So now we're comparing fractions pretty easily. Okay, so I know right away whenever the denominator is equal, the lowest numerator will always be the lowest fraction. Okay, or the least fraction. So pretty simple. 4/20 represents 1/5, so I will just write 1/5 right at the least. I'll cross that out. I can write 5/20. Okay, or I see 5/20 represents 1/4, so I will write 1/4 here. Cross that out. And then finally 6/20 represents my 3/10, so I will put 3/10 right here. Okay, so having good fraction sense will help you out, and also finding that common denominator. If we have more than just 2 fractions we're comparing, we can't quite do that superhero crisscross. Finding that common denominator will really help you out. Now what I want you to do is get out your pencil, write down these fractions, and we're going to order them from least to greatest. Okay, the first thing that I need to do, and let's say I don't have very good fraction sense at all, and let's say I don't even begin to know which fractions are greater or anything like that, and fractions is kind of like my kryptonite. Okay, in other words, it takes all my strength away and so on. Now, if that's the case, what we're going to have to do with something like this is we're going to have to find a common denominator. Okay, now when I think of the number 4, 12, 3, and 8, okay, I know that all of those numbers can go into 24. Okay, so that means each fraction is now going to have a denominator of 24. Okay, because whenever we're comparing fractions that do not have common denominators or common numerators, it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. In other words, it's really difficult and it's really hard to do. Okay, but whenever you get common denominators or common numerators, that makes it very, very simple then. Okay, now I need to think about what did I do to each denominator in order to get to 24. What did I multiply by? And that's what I'm going to have to multiply the numerator by. So 4 I multiplied by 6 to get to 24. So that means I want to multiply my numerator times 6, or multiply my numerator by 6, giving me 18. I multiply my denominator by 2, means I multiply my numerator by 2. For 1/3, I multiplied my denominator by actually 8. So that means I'm going to have to multiply my numerator by 8. Remember, whatever we do to the numerator, we must do to the denominator and vice versa. 8, I multiplied by 3 to get to 24. Therefore, I have to multiply my numerator by 3. Giving me 9/24. Okay, now it's very, very simple. Okay, I have denominators all equal to each other. Therefore, what I will do is take a look at the numerator. Whichever numerator is the smallest numerator, it will go in the least and all the way up to the greatest. Okay, so we have 8/24 is the smallest numerator, which represents 1/3, so that is the fraction that is the least. You can cross that out. Now I have 9/24, which represents 3/8. We don't want to write 9/24 here because that will not be the answer. 9/24 representing 3/8, so 3/8 would be the next fraction. Okay, after that, I can see 10/24 representing 5/12. We'll write 5/12 here. Cross that out. And then finally 18/24 representing 3/4. Okay, so these fractions in order from least to greatest will go 1/3, 3/8, 5/12, and 3/4. Let's take a look at another one. Now what we're going to do is look at mixed numbers. Okay, remember a mixed number is a whole number and a fraction. Okay, the key tip with this is you want to look at the whole numbers first. Okay, so if the whole numbers are equal, then we look at the fractions. Okay, now this one's pretty simple. So right away, 3 and 5/6 we can see is the greatest fraction or greatest mixed number because it has a 3 in front. The other two have a 2 in front. So 3 and 5/6 we'll put as the greatest. Now we do have an extra line, but that's okay. Now the next one, we have 2 and 2/3, 2 and 2/9. The 2's are equal, so we don't know which one's greater yet. However, we do have, when we look at the fractions, the numerators are equal. Okay, so whenever the numerators are equal, remember the denominator with the lowest number is actually the greater fraction. Okay, so then that would be 2 and 2/3 would be the next greatest fraction. We can cross that out. Whoops, cross that 3 and 5/6 out as well. So now we're just left with the lonely 2 and 2/9, and that 2 and 2/9 can go right in front of that 2 and 2/3 for the least fraction. Okay, fractions in order from least to greatest: 2 and 2/9, 2 and 2/3, and 3 and 5/6. What I want you to do now is pause this video and write these fractions in order from least to greatest, and when you press play, I will have the answers for you. So pause the video now. Okay, so here are the answers for this final problem here. We have 1 3/5. We knew that one right away because it had a a whole number of 1, so we knew right away that was going to be the fraction that was the least. And then from there we had 2 and 4/9 and 2 and 3/10. Now the whole numbers were equal, so what we did a superhero crisscross, okay, and multiplied 4 times 10. That gave me 40. 9 times 3 is 27. Okay, so the 40 was greater than the 27, so that means our 2 and 3/10 was the next number, and then finally 2 and 4/9 was the greatest mixed number. Okay, so this is how you compare and order fractions and mixed numbers. If you have any questions about this concept, please come and see me.